I'm Chris Chinchilla. Welcome to my podcast, an enthusiastic ramble through whatever has taken my interest the past week or so. Expect technology, games, history, travel, geekery, and as always, much, much more. Welcome to Chinchilla Squeaks with me, Chris Chinchilla. This episode is going to be a roundup of some of my interviews from IT Arena back in Lviv in Ukraine in late September, early October. Now, I am not really going to include any links in this episode, firstly because there's enough content from the interviews, and secondly because I'm actually rethinking about how I'm going to do all that moving forwards. Mulling on it, but in the meantime I have enough content to not worry about putting those links in. Anyway, another little caveat, these were all recorded at an event. There's a little bit of background noise, not too bad actually. I always try to clean that up as much as possible. And also, these were recorded back in late September before the situation in the Middle East changed, and I think also when Ukraine and Ukrainians felt a little more optimistic about things. So just bear all those in mind. We don't really go too much into talking about the broader situation, I think, because I mostly covered that a lot last year. And this year I just wanted to focus on the stories from people working there and the companies and their ideas, etc., etc. But just bear all that in mind. These were recorded a couple of months ago now. So with all of that, who is coming up? I have Anastasia from Inputsoft, who are creating a digital platform for airports. And that was a really interesting discussion around a product that is not really like a consumer product at all, and how you create these solutions for very large, risk-averse businesses. And then I speak with Dennis and Roman from Sigma Software. A little bit later in the conversation, we start touring their awesome computer history museum that was there at the event. And a few of their other colleagues start talking, and I didn't quite catch their names, so I do apologize for that. And then is the turn of Serge from Wildcodes, and we talk about the state of, I guess, remote hiring of developers, filtering, training, testing in a time of artificial intelligence, and also in a time of conflict in their home country. And then finally, I speak with Alex Dantas, and we talk about all sorts of things. Education, the future of education, the value of education in tech. It's a really interesting interview, and that rounds off the show. So with all of that, I will just add again that I've been adding the past few episodes. If you enjoy the show, please share the episode. Please share the podcast. Please leave a review. Even just some stars or whatever it is on your platform of choice. Greatly appreciated. Keeps the awareness going in a time when it's getting increasingly hard. So, yeah. Thank you very much all for that, and enjoy the interviews. I will see you on the other side. It appealed to me because you are removing paper from airports or the air industry, shall we say. I think my first question is, like, what motivated the company to want to do that in the first place?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, Inputsoft, it's a web platform where we manage everything that is happening on the ground at the airports. But it's not only for the airports, for the airlines, all the third-party providers. And the background story of Inputsoft, I'm an aerospace engineer. And for the last 8 years before I founded the company, I was working in Ukrainian airports. As an engineer, I was developing instructions for employees how to handle different types of aircraft, how to handle passengers. And also I have two co-founders also from aviation industry, one from the regulation side, another one 13 years experience in airports. So basically during the COVID, when there was like the huge decline, we sat together and think how we can help the industry to recover, how we can make workplaces for ourselves in the future. So yes, that's how we started it.
So just to clarify, it's mostly the ground, not like the routing and the traffic control type stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Everything was on the ground. Indeed, we are receiving the real-time flight data from the satellites to manage the delays and mishandlings, to rearrange all the tasks. But it's everything that is happening on the ground.
And I guess it probably also excludes things like immigration and customs and things like that.
Yeah, so the thing is, in different countries, there's different regulations for that. And for some countries, it's only like the government part, so we don't have access. But for other countries, some of in European Union, like Central South America, they have private companies handling that. And if it's a private company, we can go and work with them as well.
Which airports or which countries are currently using Inputsoft's offerings?
Before the war, beginning of 2022, we started with 3 airports in Ukraine, and that was our idea, to shape our product, our platform. So basically, we had the last meeting with one of the airport on February 23rd. Yeah. So after that, we had like months of, thinking and what we should do, because we cannot work in the country with airports which have no civil aviation right now. Like all operations were suspended. Some airports don't even have the runways anymore, and all this probably is a secret, but I know. But yeah, right now we have 6 pilot projects. It's basically all over the world. We don't have like geography. I don't know. Nothing stop us besides some political issues. But it's North America, US, Central America, South America, East Europe. And we also have sales partners, 2 companies, one in Asia and one that is helping us to provide our solution on Middle East.
Is it generally smaller airports or also very big ones?
Yeah, so our goal was to target in the first place small, medium-sized airports. But how does it happen? Like, we're going to the conference, we're talking with everyone. We don't segregate them. Oh, sorry, you are big, we don't talk to you. So basically, right now we have like companies, two of the companies of the pilot projects, they have like more than 10 locations.
Good point, because a lot of airports are managed by the same companies.
Yeah, so basically it's, let's say, medium big airports.
What were some of the biggest challenges you've had in convincing something like an airport that what they currently have is no good and they need something better? I'd imagine there's a lot of pre-existing, it's not like medical, but it's probably similar in that if it's not broke, don't fix it type of thing. So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced?
You're like 100% right. It's very stubborn industry. So, a lot of legacy processes, all these dinosaurs. And the thing is that a lot of companies on the business side still work in Excel sheets. They don't have like automatic solution. Yeah, everyone is surprised because from the passenger side, you have all the apps, you have online check-in, self drop off, like all this kind of stuff. But from the business side, people still like relying on Excel and like mathematical skills of planning engineers. So the hardest part was to be a startup, because every airport, every airline, they manage like huge billion budgets, and they afraid to work with some, no-name startup from Ukraine. But it takes us like just one meeting, to show that we speak the same language, that our solution is really beneficial for them. We call it that it built by end user for end user, because we're basically industry experts. So it's just the hardest part, to convince them to talk with you, the right people in the company to talk with you. Because if it's like operational director, they will understand everything that we're talking to them, and they're like, yeah.
On that, like how much of what you are offering is off the shelf versus custom for each airport? Because I'd imagine they all operate maybe, I don't know, somewhat differently or not.
It's a good question, because we have, competitors of the market, different kind of companies. Someone is covering just a small part of what we are doing. Another one have like bigger ones and this kind of stuff. But all of them is customly implementing it and adding some features, especially for each customer. And that's why it's so expensive. It's so long period of implementation, trainings of employees, and etc. So we build it as a web platform, like cloud-based services, which is also kind of new for the aviation industry. But also we already had like all the pre-made scenarios. We have, it's some like Lego constructor. So basically each company, they don't need our help to build their processes in our platform. They just, enter all the requirements, all the limitations, all information that they have specifically in their operations, requirements from local authorities, like trade unions, everything else. But they already have pre-built forms how to do that. So we don't really need to customize. Even though we propose to customize the dashboards for analytics, because we need to, somehow to shape it for them. But that's it. That's the easy part for us. And that's how basically it's one of our, the best points that we are selling to the customer.
And how flexible on the ground is the platform? Like, airports and airlines, especially at the moment, notorious for last minute problems and changes and delays and changes to the ideal process. So
Does your platform help assist with that, or does it get in the way sometimes?
Yeah, it definitely helps. So it helped to reduce the delays because we are efficiently allocating every employee's equipment, like each cars that you see as you come in as a passenger, like landing at the airport, all these pushbacks, passenger stairs, that also should be at exact period of time at exact location. So we are managing and planning in advance all of that. And if there are some changes in real time, we also rearranging it. We have the application also for employees on the ground, if they're like in the field, how we call it. So basically they can see everything that is happening, all changes and stuff. Right now, it's done through, I don't know, walkie-talkies through dispatcher and supervisor, or also like by paper. So if you have any procedure providing to the aircraft, you just have like paper when you noting the start time of procedure, the end time of procedure. After handling of the aircraft, you should manually handle it to the accounting department. They manually put it in some software to invoice the airline. So we are covering like all the process.
You say that the thing is, of course, paper is a lowest common denominator. Anyone can use it.
Yeah.
Whereas with a cloud-based platform, it's reliant on people having devices. Do people have to use, like, do you issue devices with it, or do the airports issue devices, or do people have to use their own? Like, how are they actually accessing the platform on the ground?
Yeah, so it have like web platform when you can access from any laptop, obviously, and we have the app that is live on iOS, Android, and also as a web app, so you can access it through the browser on any smartphone, and that's also our like advantage, because other companies that either providing app only for Android because it's easier to build it for Android, or like some time ago, I think like during the COVID, there was still companies that was building their apps for Microsoft phones only. And some other companies, of course, providing exactly like the devices, and all the solution is built only for this device. It will not scan the information if you install it for other device. So we also say like, you don't need to buy any expensive devices, any expensive stuff and things, but also not every employee on the ground need the app. Mainly it's like supervisors, like senior agents, and like all those.
Does it, because I can imagine there'll be some security concerns around something like that. So does it also work, I don't know, for example, offline or something like that? Or
Yeah, definitely, because there is like the thing in airports, especially the big ones, where you have like a lot of parking stands. There's a lot of aircraft, and their avionic devices interfere with Wi-Fi and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, so the program is basically, even if it's online, it's like noting all the information, it's receiving some updates from the employee, and as soon as it's connected again to the internet connection, it's like changing and exchanging the data back and forth.
we know that with established processes, it's often hard to convince people to change.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest surprises you came across through some of these rollouts of just people just refuse to give up or change something?
Yeah, the biggest problem is, especially for those big companies, if they have some part of the process covered by other software provider, the like huge budgets, like a lot of efforts were made, to install those solutions, to choose them. So the biggest, like the hardest thing for them is to accept that there could be another solution that they will need to implement in their operations. Because in our industry, there's like hundreds of different kind of solutions that you need to have, like departure control system for passengers, like a baggage reconciliation system to track the baggage.
Do you integrate with all of those? Because I imagine that would be,
Yeah. We have even like, we are like super flexible. We even have receiving the updates from the flight schedule, from the airport, from the airline, or you can upload it from the Excel, of course.
The only one I've ever really encountered personally is something like Amadeus, but there's a lot of these standard ones, I think, across the.
Through API, we can connect to any of them, especially like it's on the side of the customer. If they will want to, and they need actually to negotiate the access with their provider, because they basically paying them for that.
Yeah. Despite you saying that the aviation industry can be a little behind the times sometimes, as a company, what are you planning to do in the next sort of 6 months to a year? Because it is changing. Things are getting back to being as busy as they were before, if not busier, and definitely more chaotic. They need more organization. So what are you planning as a company in the next 12 months?
Mm-hmm. So basically, yes, the passenger traffic is basically recover to pre-COVID times already in the summer. And maybe you recall the last summer when it was the huge mess.
I
Yeah,
could name a few airports that could really do with
yeah. We have a list. But yeah, our thing is we are still need to release all the modules that we have in our solutions, because we have like two big software suites, one for the resource management, another for the data management, and includes like sub modules. So we need still to finish them. But our main goal is actually to reach as many airports as possible to provide a solution for them. And we are now, like, we had received the investments like in the past 6 months. We have triple our team in a size, so we are actually working now on sales and reaching out to our customers all over the world.
You're one of those products that, you probably don't sell that many, but when you do, it's
Yeah.
expensive. So
Yeah, it is. That's the thing. So when we're going, for example, for the industry conference, it's cost a lot. So basically, even like all the tech and startup conference, it's like not even in comparison. But if you're paying this sum and you can meet 10 people who eventually will bring you a couple of millions, then it's fine. It's justified.
you have a dozen customers, but they bring in millions. So, okay, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what airport would you like to change the most?
Like, obviously Ukrainian airports, but also I have a very sentimental feeling for the Borispol airport in Kyiv. I've been working there for a lot of times, and when I was working in Ukraine, I had some benefits like airline tickets. So sometimes I could just finish the job at 6, at 7. I just go from the one side of the airport to another on a flight and go somewhere and come back Monday morning and then go to work. So every time when I enter some airport around the world, even like JFK in New York, like Charles de Gaulle, like Copenhagen, really nice one, I still thinking, no, Borispol is better, even if it's not.
I don't think this is the kind of product that most people are just going to go and try, but soft, I suppose, if people want to find out more.
Yeah, basically we had just a couple of weeks ago talking with some potential customer, and they had the best feedback from me, because they told that they're working with Excel right now. They have a lot of operations, a lot of people who just basically sitting on Excel day and night. And they told us that with this program, we will just change a really shitty car straight to Ferrari.
Excel is honestly the most overused and abused application in existence.
So Sigma Software Group is a group of companies, and actually we're a service and IT consulting company from Ukraine. We have 2,100 people in our company. We have 40 offices in 19 countries, and we're a global company, and we're thinking about ourselves, and we are an ecosystem with a couple of venture funds, with university, with R&D labs, and also what else? Startups, yes, of course, portfolio startups.
You mentioned portfolio. So, what are some of the portfolio companies you have?
Yeah, so Roman already told you about Haiku. Maybe
That was a quantum computing one. Yeah.
They are focusing on quantum computing. Also, we have there is actually two funds: Sigma Investment Labs, like investments wing of Sigma Software, and independent seed venture partners, where our founders and top managers are among partners, not solely our company. So we have a bunch of portfolio companies in Sigma Software Labs and a bunch of companies in seed venture partners. Among them, I mean, the most prominent among them, except for Haiku, are also Osomic. It's a startup in the field of design. FinMap, they focus on fintech, great startup. Inputsoft, aviation, is a software for aviation, very promising startup. So there are like 16 startups in the portfolio of seed venture partners, and around this number in Sigma Software Labs.
seed fund was called the most active funds in Ukraine right now during the war, because they've closed like 16 deals, I guess. And so, they're the most active funds.
In 1 year and a half, they closed 16 deals. That's more than any Ukrainian any venture firm in Ukraine did. So, the fund was founded right before the war. And it was really a question: will it be finding it all? Will be the partners could change their mind, but they didn't. They decided to invest, and now it's the most active venture fund in Ukraine.
It's interesting, like something like quantum computing is not probably a quick return on investment. So do you have a mix of fast and slow startups like that?
Yep, but the partners have a great expertise in fintech, AI, and they see this as the most promising fields. So yeah, it's a long-term investments, and they also invest not a big checks. So they invest in with other funds like tier one funds. So yeah, it's spread in different. But the startup like Osamic in the design field, they're making money. They are really so yeah. It's a more fast return on investments for sure.
So we're stood in this wonderful exhibition of vintage technology. I have covered vintage technology many times because I love it, and I'm happy you have it. But why?
Well, I think this, it's IT Arena is 10 years this year, so it's like anniversary, of course. And so yeah, we decided, to just to get back and to remember what was tech like 10 years ago, and then we thought, okay,
I think a lot of these are older than 10 years.
and then we thought maybe it's
bit deeper.
yeah, we were thinking deeper and different. So yeah, we were thinking like 20 years. Okay, let's think what about 30 years, and just it's. And we actually we bought all this stuff on like on a sort of eBay, Ukrainian eBay, and
So it cost you a couple of hundred. Oh no, I'm thinking euros. So yeah.
it cost something, yeah. But
And it's mostly about the fun. So you can play vintage games here.
And most of them still work, which is amazing.
Play vintage games, chew vintage chewing gum, even.
Actually, it's funny because I wanted to do something like this myself years ago, and I acquired a bunch of old computers and kept them in my dad's attic. Then he moved to a smaller house, and I had to get rid of them all. It's very sad. But so, what will you do with them all after this exhibition?
that's a good question, I guess. Actually, if I could, I would took one of the Segas or Nintendos. I can even buy it. I don't know. It's
What I would suggest, I guess we need to talk with our colleagues, but my idea is this could be a start of a really great museum inside the company. I mean, in somewhere in our office, but make it bigger. It's a start.
or we can put it back on eBay or something like that, and to maybe gather some donations and donate it to the army or to the one in need.
So I think you and I might be a similar-ish age. You might be a bit younger, but which one of these was maybe one that you grew up with?
A lot of them.
Or if there's something here that you like, for example, this iMac, that was one of my first computers.
Actually, there are a lot of great computers, great gadgets here. But what touched me personally is like the floppy disk and the floppy, this device, USB floppy device. It's just so much.
You used to need those for the iMacs.
Because it was
Yeah.
floppy drives.
Yeah, but this is about remembering this old times. This floppy disk is really talking to me. Okay.
And actually, maybe for all three of you. So, as I say, I live in Berlin, where there's the Computer Spiel Museum, and they have a special section for computers from the GDR. It was the German, East Germany, basically.
Okay.
Were there any computers that you couldn't find in the West that you wanted to show, that any of you remember, like special ones that no one would know from outside of Ukraine?
I remember it was called Ariel BK08. It's for sure it's Ukrainian computer, like in the 90s. Yeah, I didn't see it here. Yeah, but it could be a nice example of that tech. Maybe you have an idea.
And the final question, why did you decide to start the fund?
I don't know.
No. Actually, I remember that the time when they launched. I didn't work here at that time. I was a journalist, but I was in the presentation, And one of the goals of Sigma founders is to develop Ukrainian tech ecosystem. Yep. So and this fund mostly focusing on Ukrainian startups. So they wanted like Ukrainian money to work on raising Ukrainian startups. So not to put it outside the country, not to invest in foreign startups. Now it's possible we will invest, but it's a great idea to invest in your own country, in your own founders, and help the like tech economy grow. They want like to grow at the middle class based on in Ukraine.
Actually, I lied. One final question. Someone said something to me earlier, which I thought was interesting, and I think it feels like it's true, and I'd be interested to get your feelings, that before the war, most Ukrainian startups wouldn't mention they were Ukrainian for whatever reason, and now they do. Do you think that's that's a fair comment, or?
No, yeah. I mean, what could be said for sure that Ukraine became a really strong international brand, and it's for sure startups. They didn't want to mention the risks connected with their geography, but if this brand, the local brand, supports the startup, for sure they are ready to share, to tell about this. And with such a strong brand as Ukraine now is, Ukrainian startups became more open about where they from, where the team. At the same time, now most of them relocated the team because of the of the safety reasons. So they are proud to be Ukrainian startups, but not all of them are working in Ukraine. No.
Well, let's hope it remains a strong brand. So.
We hope so.
Wildcoats is a marketplace of web developers. So we help the technical companies to boost their time to market by attracting top talent for Europe and Latin America to scale their team fast and efficiently, and as well to reduce burn rates because we have the lower costs for the developers usually for the product teams. So companies, our clients are usually in the Western and Central Europe and US. And we work with the teams for sure, usually in Ukraine because we are from Ukraine, but we as well work with product teams across Europe. We have the very big network of the partners. It's about 100 companies, software development companies, and that allows us to scale the teams very fast. So we usually do the first matches in 47 hours. Yeah, that's what we... 47. Yeah. 47, That's our positioning. So what do we try to do? What do we try to achieve? And our last great hire for the senior developer was 1 week only. That was really great for the US startup.
And how do you compare to a lot of the other current platforms like TopTool, Fiverr, and Upwork?
Yeah, we're doing we're handpicked because we're quite small, quite boutique, and I'm personally the tech guy as well. I have a background tech. I started coding in 12, and after we decided that it was really tough to hire the developers, especially 2 years ago. Right now the situation is a bit different, but it is opposite a bit. So when the guys technical company would like to start hiring company, there are a lot of candidates and they spend a lot of time interviewing them. So that's why we vet them on our side. We do as well as AI pre-screening. So we attract artificial intelligence to help us. And after that, we do manual screening on our side. So we have technical guys who interview, who make the testing, hard skills, soft skills, English. And after that, we just select only those who we confident in.
You said it's a little bit different at the moment. Is that because there's more qualified people, or because there's been a little bit of a shift and there's more available now? It's not quite such it's not the market it was even a year ago when there was not enough developers.
Yeah.
I think now there's more supply for the demand.
Supply. Yeah, that's true. Because of you may heard about the layoffs, a lot of in big tech. So that's why. And investment market is was a bit tough, especially at the beginning of the year. But right now, situation is going to change a bit. It's going better with investments, with hiring as well. So that's why.
Are you placing employees or contractors, or it depends on kind of the structure of the company, I suppose?
So we have a legal entity in Europe, and we signed the one B2B contract with the company, and we deal with all the compliance, all the payrolls for the company. So this is basically like subscription-based model. So we provide the teams on subscription-based, and if for some reason the company decide to decrease the number of the teams or the people involved, so this is not a problem. We care about that, and they only give us like 2-week notice, and that's not a problem.
You've been accepted into the Forbes Tech Council.
Yeah.
What is that? And I don't mean this in a rude way. Like, why did they accept you?
So this is kind of community led by the Forbes for the technical leaders, and they make some kind of screening, and they accept people who are applying to join this community, and share some insights, talking with different technical guys across the world. So that's quite interesting. We have some kind of panel discussions as well on Forbes, and hope to give some insights to the industry on tech, on hiring, on AI, remote teams. So this is our primary expertise.
On that, because I actually have a friend in Croatia who runs a testing company for developers. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me when he visited Berlin how difficult it's been recently with a lot of AI tools. Uh-huh. So you said you use AI, but how do you also prevent candidates using it to their advantage?
Yeah, that's a good question, by the way. Yes, we do. So our software have some kind of, this is our internal, what we use for the screening, but maybe we'll make it public someday. We use some technology to see, like, for example, camera and screen recording. And we try to understand, during the interview only, we try to understand if the people not cheating and how their answers are similar to what AI will answer in
He told me the simplest thing they found to do to begin with was just disable copy paste as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, we try to do something to prevent these things, because we understand this, it's getting tricky nowadays, and that's also the challenge, and also our mission to solve those things. So the companies will be confident in the people they hire, and will be spent like less effort. Yeah. So our goal is to save the time and effort for the hiring companies.
And how have you found, I mean, you're a person and a company with a lot of global connections. How have you found working from Ukraine different in the past 18 months from before?
Yeah, so unfortunately we have the war in Ukraine, and that's what we should count on. But we try to do our best. So everyone, I believe you're hanging around here in the conference in Lviv, and you see how people are working, are living their lives. So we do pretty the same. Everyone is working. Everyone is on their place. Everyone is do everything best to support the economy, support the country, support the army.
Do you find the international community more understanding or less understanding, or sometimes depends on the country probably as well? But.
Yeah, it depends on the country, it depends on the company. Sometimes, for sure, everyone kind of understands, but in terms of the business, that's sometimes this a risk, to go and to deal with the company with Ukraine. That's why we are not depending on Ukraine a lot, because we have super distributed teams, and they are spread across Europe, Eastern Europe usually, and not only in Ukraine. That's why we're trying to do that. But our administrative team is here, but actually we did not have any issues in our past in terms of this.
I noticed in your Twitter profile, you also post a lot kind of about what's happening in the country and things like that. Is that important to you?
Yeah.
Or do you try to keep you and the company a little bit separate, or did you keep them together because you don't see any disadvantage to do so?
Yeah, I see that our mission as a citizen of Ukraine to spread the word about what's happening here. We are running fundraiser and the companies to support our friends in the front line as well. So that's what we are doing, and this is kind of my personal thing, personal mission to spread the word about what is happening here, not only about the business. So
let's come back to the business a little bit more. Obviously, it has been a very interesting, so let's say a year in the development world. Software development world has changed quite a lot. Where do you see it going in the next year? How do you think that's going to affect your business?
I believe that the things will go back to normal, but it's only my like subjective opinion.
I think I'm sort of referring more to a lot of the AI tools.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
notice if companies are hiring less because they think, oh, I don't need as many people and things like that?
No, I don't think so, and I don't see such an trend. I see that for sure AI companies are growing, and I believe it's such kind of like a boom with the dots nets in zeros. Yeah, it's such thing happening right now with AI. So a lot of AI companies are on the market right now, a lot of AI startups, and it will grow. It will grow a lot, I believe. It's kind of new platform like mobile phone with a speed internet. So this is like the same thing, and it will go like only higher and higher. And I believe that hiring will be also considered in this scenario, and a lot of more data scientists, more data analysts will be required to join the teams.
I don't know if this really affects you because I'm not sure if you're hiring or placing mostly senior and above. Sure. But one criticism, or not criticism, but issue I've heard with a lot of these tools is it's really going to hit junior developers because it's going to be harder for them to get experience. And senior developers are basically going to be like babysitting AI tools. Is that something you see or not?
Yes, you're true. That is something I see as well. So for juniors, it will become more harder. It is harder already because a lot of like talents, more like middle and senior talent is available in the market. So for juniors, it's become already harder. And with AI tools and developing the AI like programming and so on, it will become a bit more harder. But I believe that big companies and big tech will focus on this problem as well and try to like taught juniors and to grow them to like become a middle and senior programmers, because for sure, yes, the demand for the senior level programmers, developers are very high, and it will be high. But in some day they will decide that they would like to not to continue their development journey, and someone should replace them for sure.
And in the meantime, whilst we wait for those old people like me to retire, for those junior people at the moment who are struggling to get in the first job, what do you recommend they do to just stay as competitive as they can?
I recommend maybe some obvious thing, I don't know, but in terms of AI, by the way, they could do some trainings with AI, and they could just do some pair programming, etc. So, and this will allow them to grow their skill. And for sure, try to find some kind of gigs, maybe, and try to find some kind of job they could get on and just get some experience and get some mentor. So this could be also some specific advice to get some senior guy to mentoring them and helping them with growing their skills. So basically, maybe this advice is fine for them.
Alex, you started this interview by asking me a question, which I really like.
Interviews are conversations, right?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, most of the time, that's how I like them to be as well, but that's not how everybody likes them to be. But you asked me how I started doing this. Actually, if I go back a bit, a lot of my early writing was in music. I used to work for what was then called Street Press, the magazines you would get in London and Melbourne, and write band reviews, album reviews, things like that. And then I actually played in some bands and went to university and studied guitar then. Now I play drums mostly. And then I did computer science for a while, and then went back into like doing programming work, and then got more into doing tech writing. And that means everything from doing documentation for companies, but also I started doing a lot of editing of tech blogs and things like that. And the podcast has been running for about 8 years now. I just like talking to people. I think you asked me why I do it, and I just find talking to people to be interesting. You know, a lot of your talk, which we'll get to in a second, was about staying relevant, learning, staying up to date, people to people contact, and that's something I enjoy too. So that's why I do it. Yeah. So let's have a very brief summary of your talk, because it was quite fascinating. I think the second half was, you know, especially engaging. That's not really the word I'm looking for, but it'll do. But give us a quick summary of what you spoke about earlier.
Well, the whole thing was about trying to explain to people how the manufacturing and education are emerging in a way that was unexpected. And it wasn't expected for me and how I got to the position too. I moved to the United States to do classical ballet, ended up joining the army, and then eventually end up in tech. So I didn't plan to be in education at all. But by talking to people, by getting engaged with the hardware community, I realized that what it's going on is I have a lot of people that are becoming very successful, and where the education that they had is not playing the role at all. Is most of the greed that they have is a whole class of entrepreneur that knows that they cannot depend on education anymore to actually make stuff happen. So I guess the second part of the talk, it's more my deterministic view of I see that universities are not providing what we need to actually make in the marketplace, especially in North America, where most likely you're going to get out of school with a debt that you're never going to be able to repay. And universities have moved from teaching to certifying. So they are there to certify you. They're not there to teach you, because most people are learning this stuff on their own. You don't need the figure of the teacher, the instructor in your class anymore. So when you take the best university, for example, they got really good at filtering people and attracting like the best. But when you're just teaching the best, what kind of good education do you really have? Because you're already teaching the best. The good education should mean to actually teach, the weakest link and bring that person to actually to the.
There's a couple of things I'd like to follow up with there, because it's interesting because traditionally, especially in North America, a lot of big now successful tech companies came from university. So do you think there was a certain point where that changed, that companies like Google, for example, were some of the last generation of entrepreneurial projects that came out of universities, and something's changed in the past 10, 15 years? Or
something definitely changed. I don't want to diminish the role of universities being really good at attracting very good people. But I don't think those people, once they are filtered and put together, it's not that they need universities. This happened because they got really good at attracting the best. Now, this is different 20, 30 years ago than it had been happening in the last 15 years, for example. As was mentioned in my talk, the business of the university is not financially viable, even for the best of the best. And as I mentioned, take Stanford, for example, where it generates $6.5 billion a year, where only 10% comes from extra tuition. Take MIT, for example, where if you go to the tuition page of the MIT, they say it costs $75,000 per year, but they're subsidizing already 50% of your tuition. So it doesn't work. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any financial sense. It's too long. It takes too long. It's too expensive. And you are there for the network. Is that what the value is? And then if that's true, and then we're talking about maybe 30 to 50 universities where that is actually the value. What about everything else? The marketplace has learned how to hire differently. Let's look at the software engineer, for example. So software engineer, remember like 2005, 2006, Google, Apple were fighting for Stanford engineers, paying them $300,000 as a bonus signing for like we just came in the door right now. And up to the point where I think it was General Assembly who came in. So General Assembly was a boot camp in San Francisco. I don't know actually what happened. I think they're still around. I think they got bought out. They got some real estate deal where they got bought out as a real estate deal. It became something weird, but anyway, they got bought out. Then when General Assembly started and said, you know what, by the way, we can train a person in a 6 months training program. And eventually companies start hiring from that program up to the point where they decided, wait, we're fighting for all these students here from these schools. When we're getting people from these boot camps are getting graduated in 6 months with something that's more than in an university teaching, and we're paying them a quarter of what we're fighting to pay for these people. Fast forward today, about 50% of all the employees that go work in tech and those big companies comes from the boot camps.
Yeah. There has been an argument, though, that a lot of the engineers coming from boot camps, yes, they're more up to date, but they're also missing a lot of the underpinnings and try to reinvent the wheel a lot from some of those sort of more theoretical ideas that have stuck around in computer science for decades and are taught more at universities. Do you think that matters?
For most of code, it doesn't. For most code, for most work that people actually are doing, it really doesn't matter at all. Now, I'm not saying that there's no value on those people who decide to take a more theoretical research route, but it's an oversell to the problem for the most part.
And you mentioned, I think, on one slide, things like they're called different things in different countries, but like the kind of practical college, they have different names. Mm-hmm. Do you see value in? Yeah, well, not even those, but even the more traditional ones. Do you see value in those because they often fill in that gap that you mentioned about the weakest link, the people who can't afford to go to those top universities? Those colleges tend to fill those gaps. Do you know of any practical colleges, whatever you want to call them, like that do a good job with what they have available?
So let's take a look at the problem. So about 50% of the people who go into engineering in North America do not finish. Out of the 50% who actually finish, only about 40% end up working in the field that they chose to. My hypothesis for this is because people romanticize what it means to be an engineer. Maybe watch, I don't know, Tony Stark and Iron Man, like that's what I'm going to be. And then it's like, yes, I'm going to go be in an iron suit.
Because most of the time it's just selling more shit.
Sure, yeah. Then you go to college and then they'll hammer you with 3 years of theory and hypothesis and all that kind of stuff. It kills your dreams. It just destroyed it. And I think you kind of like lose kind of like the love for where you want to work. What we believe that should happen, you should taste what it means to become an engineer at the beginning. Yeah. And it's not, it's like a project-based education approach or inverted learning classroom, or what some people call it. It's not for just those people who cannot afford. That's not the whole point anymore. It's for those people who want to experiment before figure out if they want to go to college at all. And I think eventually we'll substitute a college altogether. If you ignore the argument that you need to go to the college for the reputation specifically, and if you need to go to the college for the social skills, which I don't think that's what college teach no more. And there are so many other ways for you to acquire those skills. So the way how we believe is this. People should start working on projects immediately because they have to figure out why they work on things. And then it worked for a lot of people. It's not going to work for some. Maybe those people decide, I think I'm going to go to college for this. But at that point, they already have a better idea what it becomes to be an engineer, what it means to become an engineer. And then we hope that if he or she decides to go to college at that point, you make it through. They'll make it through. Now, the problem with project-based approach for education, it's been for a long time, is how you demonstrate to an employer that you know what you know. The way how we solve that problem is by having people to write a lot of documentation. It's kind of like GitHub type of thing. So you build all these things and you actually go and you document it, because by documenting you have an explanation in a way how to explain to your employer how you actually got to how we solve that problem. And then we create like a badge system, almost like a boy, girl, scout type of thing, where as you grow into the ladder, you keep acquiring those badges. And we hope that maybe with a decade or 15 years, those things will be equivalent to what a university would be. We're not the only solution in town. There's a lot of other people trying to work out different things, because what people are trying to solve right now is like, how do I measure what do you know? Right now, how do we measure how do you know? How good you are memorizing stuff.
Which is increasingly irrelevant.
Because we outsource most of our processing power to the phones.
Books of lookup tables and things like that have existed for centuries. Most engineers and scientists don't know everything; they just know how to interpret it. And that's it's not about what you know; it's about knowing what to do with it.
It's how to measure how you know. That's one thing, and then the capability of you to use that information to actually do something useful with it. But right now, we only measure how much you memorize it. And that's why I'm saying about this, the university fine and not teaching. It's just because it's different now. It's a whole different model. And I don't know what is the other method is better than this, better than that is. What I do know is that universal model does not work. It does not going to work for a lot of people in my field, for example. Hopefully my kids will want to go, but if they don't, it's working for much less people. Let's put it that way. It's just an increasing solution for a non-existing problem.
And this is interesting because in the talk you did present a lot of problems, but were honest to say you don't have the solutions, and you asked people to give you feedback. Do you know of any countries or systems doing better at education for the future?
I think the Valley is doing a lot of interesting experimentations, especially in high school. It's hard to do this for higher education because there's a reputation element that comes with it that people seem to be, the club, you want to be part of a club, it seems to be really strong. But there's a lot of experimentation. Synthesis is actually trying to do something interesting. There's a couple of the schools that are coming out right now that they're trying to do this whole online thing. On the universities trying to do something different. I don't know if you heard about them. Minerva, yeah. Depending on what kind of metric they use, Minerva is one of the most innovative universities in the world right now. But then the problem is that for subjects like administration, business, economy, and a bunch of those stuff, they just become so irrelevant for you to learn those things in schools. Before the pandemic, there were a lot of universities that came to visit us at our space, and they had lost 30% of all the students. The most reputable universities in Brazil have lost over 35% of their students. Just it's a revenue that's gone. They're not getting any more people, just not interested.
It's become very expensive. And you've mentioned a few times the business of university. University has become a business, and it's an expensive one in many countries.
If you look like places like South America, for example, Brazil, most universities are free. Yeah. So the best ones are free, which is a paradox because to get to the best one, you have to study a lot. And then to study a lot, you have to go to very good schools who only usually rich people can go to it. So, but the most well-funded are the public ones, and they have the same issues. They have some issues of non-attendance, people just not interested. The world changed. And maybe because everyone wants to become an influencer.
I mean, this is this is something you didn't touch upon, but some of the other things you did touch upon were, we now have it's not new technology, but a rapid increase in the sophistication, speed, and usage, most crucially, of a lot of assistive AI tools. I think you said some things along the way of, a lot of companies really knowing that they don't need people doing a lot of what they're doing, but they just keep them for whatever reason. And, most people are thankful for that at the moment. If that continues, and we do have a lot of people who are out of work, do you think, there's always this ideal in the kind of universal basic income world that people will be more creative thinkers and all this kind of thing if there's other things doing the job for them? But do you think that's really going to happen, or we'll just have a lot of bored people?
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think nobody knows what's going to happen. But I don't think creative thinking is what we're actually going to end up doing it, because I think the machines do better creative thinking than we do. Like I was telling to the people who came to talk to me at the end, if look, maybe you're looking at this as it is right now, and you're kind of biased towards our past and biased towards the love of the human. But just take what we have right now and 10x it. Just take the technology we have right now, like ChatGPT, which is, still just completing phrases for the most part. Just take that, but 10x it. Yeah. And then
it's funny though, because people often say that computers and whatever you want to call it could be more creative, but there is, you talked about monkey and banana a lot. But the other thing we like to do is be creative. Just because a machine can do it for me doesn't mean I don't want to do it. Making music and things like that. And I think there is an element of that there'll always be that spark, hopefully, in many of us, not all of us, that being creative is just enjoyable, and it's therapy. It's many things to many different people, and you can't replace that, I think, hopefully.
So the lines that I'm going along with this is okay, what kind of motivation do I have to stay alive? Right? So it's I think a lot of us put a lot of value into the work that we do, And a lot of us put a lot of value into the competition. Like I want to be better than the other person. And I guess luck those who don't care about that and don't have that ambition to be better than another human being, but they're just content to what they have. But all this effort that we do to become something unique, perhaps that's what we're trying to do. We want to be unique and in the same way better in our professions that we chose. We're going to have to come to the terms that it doesn't matter how much effort we put into that, the machine will do better. Then the question would be, should we accept our limitation and keep improving, even knowing that we're never going to be better than the other thing? I think we should. I think we should. But I don't want to be blind to the aspect of it. I decide to live my mediocre life and improve to the pace that a human can, knowing that I cannot never be as good as the machine can do.
I think this is something that is important to know, especially being human, is acknowledging change and risk. The world is always changing. There's always risk. There's always danger. I mean, we're talking in a war zone, effectively. There's a risk all the time, but you can't ignore it. I think you talk about the sort of safe existence, and I think that's when a lot of people tend to ignore that. This is getting into a bit of a weird conversation, but there's always the two in English language anyway, the two kind of key dystopian texts are 1984 and Brave New World. One is ruling by oppression and one is ruling by distraction. And I think everyone always mostly agrees Brave New World is the real reality. That you just dull people to not really caring. Anyway.
I think we tend to believe this into like I often have these conversations. People say, but this AI is going to hate us. I was like, look, I tend to believe that this hate or love is a very human thing. And I think it's kind of a drive for us to keep existing. It mostly drive our procreation biology things. Because I don't think AI would care. It's not about that. It's not about hating or loving us. That's not the point. It's like it gets to the point where we cannot comprehend what kind of intelligence we're talking about. Now the question will be, would that intelligent thing come to the conclusion that in order for the reality that the AI believes that has to exist, we should not be included in it because we're an obstacle to progress, and then we have to be extinct at that point. I welcome that fact too. I actually have no problem with that.
Actually, I was leading towards a final question, but you've taken my brain to another place. Something in your talk that I kind of, I think disagree or agree, but that I took maybe issue with was you saying about a lot of countries now are having population problems decreasing. There's a lot of countries that are rapidly aging, but we also we're not overpopulated, but we were getting to a point where we might be, and we're seeing issues around food and water scarcity and things like that. So is a smaller population really a bad thing, bearing in mind there's other things? And also, traditionally we would have children to pass on knowledge to them. But if we have other ways we pass knowledge on to other people, our intellectual children, as it were, does it? I mean, in the short to medium term, does it matter? In the long term, of course, it will matter. But in the short to medium term, does it matter that we're not having children as much?
I guess for some countries more than others, China is a big issue. Like, they have a lot of people here. If we don't have a portion of the population who consumes, then that is a problem. I guess it will be a problem for you and I, unless if we get to live forever. Yeah. There's another thing that maybe come up to an interesting solution to this, which is, new types of relationships and family structure are being formed. And I find that to be fascinating. There's a whole discussion about that. And I care less about why it's happening, more because it is happening. Yeah. So I would look at just like, so it is happening. And in that structure where people don't want to have kids, where males or females, they don't want to procreate anymore, there's a whole new world on the side showing up and saying, you know what, we can make these things in the lab. And then
we get to Brave New World again there.
And then if that should happen, and then if we can easily make those in the lab, do we want to do it? Are we still going to want to do it? I don't know. To your point, though, I don't think having a smaller population is a bad thing. Having a old population sick, it's a problem. That cannot produce and cannot do much. That's a problem.
And this is always the fallacy of living forever. Everyone always thinks living forever means you'll be in your 30s all the time. No, it doesn't.
Right, no, it doesn't. No, when I mean living forever, I want to live in my 30s exactly. I don't want to live in my 80s and where I barely can walk.
Okay, let's finish with you opened this with asking me what keeps me motivated, what interests me. What's your monkey banana? What keeps you going? What's your motivation?
I get asked that question quite a lot. I don't know. No, I know the following. I think a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, they got some sort of mental disease that they want to see the end of it. And that end never comes. And like every day we wake up and say, how further can I push this? And we do it. And then we get to a little more of like, how much more can we go? And we just keep going. I love my work as an entrepreneur, and as a human, I feel like I found my place in the planet, mostly because I'm surrounded by people who are way more intelligent than I am, and I understand only 3% what they're talking about. And I guess maybe this motivates me. It's that curiosity that keeps going. But there's destruction that goes along the way. There's this personal destruction that goes along that way of that disease or that motivation, but it doesn't cease to exist.
Fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
And those were my interviews from IT Arena earlier in the year. I didn't really want to input how I felt about the event in general. As I say, I wanted to give it a bit of a different treatment this year. Last year I did more of that, but I will say it was an extremely lively event, which is why, hearing news from the past few months where things have taken a bit of a downturn, or not really a downturn, but not as enthusiastic or as high profile in the world for the invasion in Ukraine anymore. That event was such a wonderfully optimistic, cheerful event. The weather was amazing. People were in good spirits. There were people from all over the world visiting. It was an amazing event. And some of the talks and some of the people I met were as interesting as always a country I love. And I really hope things go back to going the right way for them. We'll see, I suppose, in the coming months. The world is very, very interesting at the moment, to say the least. And what is news from me? I have been updating the podcast page of the website. In fact, I did that for the last episode, but I'm not sure if I really spoke about it because I did it after the episode was finished. There is now an interactive transcript and an actual page for each episode. I'll be fleshing out the details of that over time. It's going to take me a little bit of time to backlog a lot of those, but the intention is to have the transcript, some notes, and also links to where you can find the episode on your platform of choice, and maybe a bit more in the future, but those are the main things I'm working on right now. I also finally backlogged a bunch of my Medium posts to the blog section of the website. I've got a few more things to add yet. I just released a video on what's new in JetBrains Writer Side, their tech writer focused IDE. And yeah, I'm still working on some new podcasts with some new collaborators. It's kind of been mixed, and we're just figuring out when we're going to release, I think. And similarly with another new show. And those things aside, there's been a lot of travel. I was at Web Summit last week, and there's things coming out of that. I'll be at Slush next week, the last event for the year. There'll be things coming out of that too, and then things will calm down a bit. I'm still working on the tech writing book. I am potentially about to start a new book on a different topic in the new year, which will be interesting too. And I am now getting back to making some new videos and blog posts, lots of them in progress. I keep saying this, but they are actually now drawing closer, including some new sponsored content, which I will be working on as soon as I finish recording this. And that said, I have added a how you can support me page, including details on sponsored content, which you can find at chrischinchilla.com/support. That will do for today. I'll be back next week with more interviews from various people and places. I'm not 100% sure what I'll put out next week now that I'm sort of starting to clear the event coverage. But I will see you then. Please rate, review, and share wherever you are listening. Highly appreciated. I have been Chris Chinchilla. Thank you very much for joining me, and take care, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. Find out more about me at chrischinchilla.com, where you can find show notes, sign up for my newsletter, and find all of my writing, games, work, and video links. There's also details on how to get in touch with me. And if you want to get even closer to what I do, join my Discord server for behind the scenes discussions and helping me produce my shows and work.